Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. On behalf of my wife and myself, as new church planters to the West Phoenix area, we'd like to welcome you to our first broadcast of the Hope Community Christian Fellowship Worship Service. And considering the fact of the circumstances that we're in, it's sort of odd, but yet still worship. Because I'm reminded of Jesus telling the woman at the well, there's going to come a time whereby God is simply looking for people to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And so, as we move to worship, please allow me to introduce to you my beautiful wife, Cynthia. And Cynthia, give Cynthia an opportunity just to share whatever's on her heart momentarily.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our first broadcast. I was assigned to give some encouraging words this evening, but my focus is, we know the pandemic is everywhere. It's in the news, it's on your TV, it's on your radio, but ultimately what we need to focus on, particularly this week, the purpose of why we're here. And what came to me, first of all, was the verse that everyone knows. It was John 3:16. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Now, during this week, this Holy Week, this verse came more important to me and to define what we call the ultimate sacrifice of love. When you look at your son and daughters, you look at God and say, well, He gave His only Son. Would you do that? Would you give up your only son and daughter for people you don't even know? Most of us will say no to that. So when you think about that, you think about what ultimately, how much love He has for us, that He gave His only child for us during this Holy Week. So when Jesus was born this week, He knew what His job was. He knew what His purpose for being born from the beginning, when He was born in Bethlehem, to the time He was resurrected from the cross, that to show His ultimate love and sacrifice. We knew from this week where He knew, He healed the blind, fed the hungry, made the blind see, as well as he was humble enough to wash the feet of His apostle who later one of them will betray Him. Knowing this, why would you sit there and say, well, why would He do that for me? And we call that agape love. For no reason at all, He loves us. So during this week of the Holy Week, we have to be reminded of the pandemic will go away, but ultimately His sacrifice, in which we celebrate not Easter, but Holy Resurrection Day. During this period, let's focus on that instead of the pandemic, instead of what's going on in your home, instead of being stuck in a house. Because if you think about it, if He didn't rise to save our lives, we wouldn't have all these things to think about. So,
Cynthia, as you brought up the Holy Week and the resurrection, what does the Holy Week mean to you? What does it represent?
well, just like I mentioned before, you really focus on ultimately what Jesus did to make us live today. The main purpose for us is to recognize the steps, what He done throughout the week, from the time that He walked into on a humble donkey with no fanfare, knowing that He ultimately was going to give up His life for someone He doesn't even know. And to me, that ultimately shows, who would do that? We will be appreciative of a stranger giving us $1 or $2. But then it's still, we won't recognize the fact that the person who gave his life so we can live. We talk about generations after generations. And if that ultimate sacrifice wasn't made, we wouldn't be here today.
You know, you made mention about Jesus riding in on a donkey, on the colt of a donkey, one that has never even been ridden before. Significant because one, it was prophesied in Psalms that daughter of Zion, look, your king comes riding in on the colt of an ass. But then you got to keep in mind, victors, kings, when they came riding in on stallions, on white stallions or black stallions. They came riding in on with horse-drawn chariots, which spoke to the level of elevation, the level of importance. But like you said, the King of Kings, Jesus, riding in on the exact opposite, a humble way, and riding in on the colt of an ass, one that had never been ridden before. In fact, it shows us the difference. It's juxtaposed to the difference to how their kings rode in versus Christ. Because Christ come riding in on that donkey like he did is the exact opposite of victory. Christ got victory, gave victory, and won victory by giving up his life, by losing his life, so to speak. That's the victory. Cynthia, you're recognizing, as you stated, the resurrection and all that, and the Holy Week coming through, Jesus being crucified on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that Thursday. His crucifixion started roughly about the same time as the morning sacrifice, and he died roughly about the same time as the evening sacrifice. And the women then came to the authorities and asked, can they let Jesus down, that they might put him in the grave, because the next day was their Sabbath, or type of Sabbath, because it was the Paschal supper, which no one could do any work. And then the day after that being Saturday, which was their Sabbath, and no one can do any work. So that early Sunday morning, women are coming to the tomb. And as they come to the tomb, you can almost see them, being kind of anxious, because they know that there's a huge boulder in front of the tomb. And you can hear them saying, who's going to move, who's going to roll away the stone for us? So with that same idea, who's going to roll away the stone of our problems, the stone of our situation, stone of our health? Who's going to roll it away? And they get there, and the stone is already moved. The angel's sitting there, asking who you're looking for, and he's already, Jesus the Christ has arose, just as he said he would. Go and tell the disciples. But then, as you know, Mary Magdalene stayed, because the body is missing, and she's begging and asking. She's begging and asking for the guy to, for another gentleman to tell her where they took his body at. And then Mary realizes, because Jesus tells her who he is. The question that I want to ask with that backdrop, that power that raised Jesus from the dead, that power that rolled the stone away, how do you see that power working and helping you in life today?
That anything is possible. Anything is possible. That's how I see it. When you discourage about something, lo and behold, while even a blink of an eye, anything is possible. That's how I see it. Am I encouraged every day? always the person who said the glass is half full versus half empty. Because it only takes a little bit of hope, faith that something can happen. And it don't take much. So that scenario, as I see it, gives me hope, gives me faith that anything is possible if I only just believe that it can possibly happen.
That's great. You know, I look at that and I realize two things. One, that no matter what the stone is, because stones gets represented by problems in our lives.
What would you say? Stuff or blocks?
A block, a boulder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, problems, because sometimes we get problems that come up in our lives that we just think and we feel Satan tricks us into believing that we just can't do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how hard we try, we just can't make a change. We can't effectuate a change in this thing, and so it depresses. But
what the Bible say, you only have to have a faith of what? A mustard seed. That's it. So the mustard seed versus a boulder. Mustard seed, boulder. If you think the mustard seed, well, it don't take a lot of energy. It does take a lot of energy if you have a boulder. So if you think of the mustard seed faith, what they call mustard seed faith, you know, we have mothers that have church. Went to church. And we always hear about that mustard seed faith. Do you actually see what a mustard seed actually look like? If he tells you that's all you have to have, why is it so hard? Even I don't even know that.
So that mustard seed faith, when we look at that boulder, we look at that problem. You know, the Caravans years ago sang a song that said, I prayed and I prayed, praying that it won't be too long, but I turned it over to Jesus. And I stopped worrying about it. I turned it over to the Lord and He worked it out.
Uh-huh.
But that ideal of dealing with a problem that no matter what you've done, you know that you can't change it. No matter what it is, no matter what you do, you know it's because the problem is bigger than you.
Uh-huh.
But the grace is, and the blessing for us today, is the fact that the power that rolled the stone away is the same power that is availed to us by faith. And it doesn't take a lot, just a mustard seed.
Uh-huh.
That faith that our problems, that God can roll those stones, those problems away. That's one. But the second thing is this. They were worried about the problem that they saw, which was the stone sitting in front of the tomb that was there to keep them out. They were worried about that. But what they didn't worry about, or what they couldn't worry about, which was the things that they could not see. They couldn't see all of the soldiers who would have been sitting in front, guarding their tomb. They couldn't see those dangers. They couldn't see. They couldn't see that, and so they were worried about something that they could see. But if you can worry about something that you can see, and realizing that God takes care of and removes the stuff that you can't see, He protects us from dangers seen and unseen. So if He protects us from dangers unseen. Why do we worry so much about the things that we see? If the God that we serve, Jehovah, Yahweh, if the God of our mothers and our fathers, if that same God is able to fix the problems that we know, why are we worrying about stuff why are we even worrying about it? Because it just doesn't make any, seemingly doesn't make a whole lot of sense if the God can take care of the stuff that you can't see, which most of the time is more horrific than the stuff that you can. So if he can protect you from that, and you know that, because we pray it, we say it, protects us from danger seen and unseen. So if he protects us from the seen, why are we complaining and worrying about the seen? Meaning that if he protects us from the unseen, why are we worrying and complaining about the seen? That's one half of that. The other half is that, we're talking about rolling away stones. You know that there's more than one stone rolled away that day? Yeah, Jesus, his stone was rolled away. But when we further read down that passage, we then find that many of the saints who had passed away, the stones had rolled away, and they were resurrected, and they were walking the streets in the city of Jerusalem. So that says that God used his power for his son, but it's not specific and germane to him. His power is available and given to all of us. All we have to do is ask him. All we have to do is believe. All that we have to do is simply ask and expect, knowing that our work is to prepare and to do. God's work is to roll the stones away. Because if God called you to do something, no matter what it is, he's going to make the high places low, make the crooked places straight, that you're able to do the work that he has for you. What do you think about that?
You had a whole lot going on there. What do I think about it? I mean, you're absolutely right. The question is why? I can't really speak for you or for anyone else. The way I see it is that we're human. And the thing is that unfortunately, when we are human, we are doomed to make mistakes. Only thing that we can do is every day is to ask God to correct those mistakes and realize he's God, and then hopefully, prayerfully, we use that same faith to guide us in the direction that he wants us to be in or to have. Why? We can never explain why we do the things that we do. Every day we think, do, say in the spirit of sin, period. And every day he forgives us. And that's what makes me go from day to day, that anything that I say, do, or have said to anyone, that he forgives me, and hopefully the person, if it's a person that I did or say or whatever I did to that person, they'll forgive me too. So I hope I answered your question, but the thing is that I can't answer that. Only God knows what individually, why we do and say the things that we do, and hopefully he forgives us.
That word should help us to stop worrying. Because just like the women, they were worried, but God took care of them. If we place our cares, our worries, and work in our faith, work through our faith, trying to be obedient to what the Spirit of God says, we're always going to be okay. Amid this whole COVID-19, it's a huge boulder in our lives. But no matter how huge it is, no matter how over-encompassing it may feel or seem, know that it's not more powerful than the God that we serve. It's minuscule. And all we have to do is put our faith in him, trust in him, and he'll work it out for us. We don't have to worry about it. Because God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. Walk in what he's giving. Don't be afraid of it. On that note, I want to thank you for joining in with us. As you can see, we're a little different here.
Different. So
We're a little different here. But one thing's for sure, we believe in worshiping and honoring God to the best of our abilities, realizing and knowing that we're not perfect. And knowing that we're not perfect, but we serve a perfect God who does perfect things through us. So we want to invite you to join us again next week. But we'll have another discussion about something. Whatever it is that the Lord lays in our hearts to discuss. Or maybe I should say, whatever the Lord lays in my heart to discuss. And I want to invite you to join us on Wednesday for a Bible study as well, as we continue to move forward in the planting of a new church, the Hope Community Christian Fellowship, Hope being an acronym for helping our people excel. And where we can say our hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. God bless you, and you have a blessed day.